Hello and welcome to today's European SharePoint Office 365 and Azure Community webinar. My name is Shane and I'm delighted to be joined by Sascha Burendonk, User Adoption Consultant, Silverside, the Netherlands, who will be talking to you today about Microsoft Teams, OneDrive and Office, the ideal threesome for co-authoring documents. Remember to join the conversation about today's webinar on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is @EuropeanSP and our hashtag is ESPC19. Don't forget to check out the Resource Center. This is packed with the latest blogs, ebooks, webinars, and how-to videos. Simply visit sharepointeurope.com and click the content link at the top of the page. Recently, we launched the ESPC 19 program, which is full of Microsoft leaders, a fantastic speaker lineup, and a broad range of topics. See for yourself at sharepointeurope.com. After the webinar, we will have a questions and answers session. Type any questions you have for Sascha in the questions window. Questions will be selected and answered at the end of the presentation. This webinar will be recorded and added to the Resource Center, where you will be notified by email when it is available. And now I'm going to pass you over to our webinar presenter, Sascha Burendonk. Hello, Sascha.
Hello, Shane, and thank you for having me and your introduction.
Great. Take it away.
Thank you very much. I will. All right, so I'm going to also start sharing my video for a bit, and I would like to just have that on for a little bit while I'm introducing myself. Let me also browse through my PowerPoint. Right there. All right, so today I'm going to be talking to you about an ideal threesome. Now, who doesn't like a threesome? Oh, hang on, it keeps switching from my camera. An ideal threesome, which is Teams, OneDrive, and Microsoft Office applications for co-authoring documents. Thank you for being here. Let's go through what we want to do. A little bit about myself. I am mainly focused on user adoption, making change happen in organizations, making employees be more productive. We do this at Silverside with our own methodology called PACE, and our PACE methodology is meant to help organizations through a series of stages that will get you be more productive, more effective, and more efficient with new technology. And the reason that we are focusing so heavily on user adoption is because of the increasingly rapid change in technology. The rate of change of new things in technology is so immense, and in fact, people are not really able to keep up with that accelerating pace. So what happens is that technology over time has actually been increasing, staggering, and the human adaptability, the way to cope with it, to adapt, to adopt, is basically lacking behind, and there's a gap. We provide our PACE methodology to help employees to bridge that gap, and we do that across 4 stages, helping all kinds of employees that are generally also described as innovators, early adopters, early majority, late majority, and then eventually laggards, across these stages over time to achieve a maximum user adoption rate of effective use of Office 365 tools, not just use, but actually particularly effective use. So let's focus on what we're going to do today, because we developed this PACE methodology, and obviously today I'm going to talk about co-authoring documents using this wonderful Threesome, Teams, OneDrive, and Microsoft Office applications. What we will do today is have a look at this productivity scenario as we describe it. I'm going to take you through the problem that exists, and I'm going to talk about a new way of co-authoring documents. Now, maybe you think this is only about real-time co-editing in Word online. It's not. It's actually about a lot more. It's about the whole process, and it's about a new way of working. So I'm going to describe what this process is and how we can collaborate on files, have conversations, and also do all kinds of cool stuff in Office and with Teams to actually finalize some documents and distribute them somewhere else if necessary. So let's just define what I'm talking about when I'm talking about co-authoring documents. I'm talking about a process. It's a productivity scenario that most Office workers are actually experiencing, whether that be in Word or in Excel or in PowerPoint. It could even be other applications, obviously, but this is the main focus, these 3 Office applications. This is about sharing and co-creating documents. So creating Office documents using all the features that maybe Office provides, and using Office 365 cloud features around sharing files, about real-time collaboration, whether that be in chat or video sessions. And it's about the process and how the process can be done more efficiently. In our PACE methodology, we have a model that we call Me, We, Key, which we use to help define when are we using which apps for either personal productivity, team productivity, or organizational productivity. And this is not cast in iron, but it helps us making a choice within the almost 40 apps that Office 365 provides users, employees, to either choose which tools can I use to be more efficient in my work, or which tools can I use to be more efficient in the day-to-day work, or for the organizational sharing, knowledge sharing, and communication. This scenario, co-authoring documents, I consider to be mainly a we scenario. So not only do we plot apps around the Me, We, Key model, we also plot productivity scenarios that we have trainings for, as this co-authoring documents is one example that you see here in the team productivity scenarios. It's about day-to-day business of specific groups. Now, this one actually has a little bit of a mix because it is also a little bit about general Office productivity in the Me scenario, and maybe even online and offline access to my files a little bit. So without getting too much into all of our PACE model and the scenarios that we provide, let's have a look at the problem that I see in organizations happening today and long ago, about using email for collaboration on files. We are all doing it, probably still a lot. Maybe this audience is slightly different, that could be, than the general population. But I would like to know, I'm going to use a few polls, and I'm going to start with the first poll here. So if Shane would be kind enough to start sharing the poll.
Sure.
I would like you to tell me, how many copies of files do you get when you would be having a file, let's say a Word file, and I'd send it to 4 other people and have them give me their input. I'd finalize it, and then I'd ask them again, so how do you think it is now? Can you give another review? So in 2 review rounds. I'm pretty curious what your idea would be.
People are voting, Saskia, so I feel like we're back in Eurovision again.
Yeah.
So I'll just give people another Dupont. Exactly. I will just give people another 4 or 5 seconds to vote.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, and I'm going to close the poll and I will share the results.
Yep.
So let me see if I can share. So, okay, so how many files copies do you get sending it for review to 4 other people, 2 in review? So we've got 19% at 4, 31% at 10, 40% at 12, and 10% at 52.
Okay, so that's interesting. Now, I'm not sure how good you are at math, but I've had this actually described to me once, because I am not that good at math, but I did have somebody who was good at math help me along. So this is the formula that you could use to actually help you calculate. Now, another way to do this, of course, would be reenacting this. So often what I do in a workshop is actually using Post-its and paper clips and having people put it on other people's bodies to actually mimic it. And of course, there are certain choices that may make the outcome a little different, but I'm considering this to be a matter of how many revision rounds, how many people are involved, and how many times do you store that file either in your mail in your inbox, in the sent items, and on your file system. So it could be a hard disk or a network drive. Every time you make changes. Now, of course, there are minor changes, but in general, we could see actually, if you would calculate it with this version, that even after only 2 people collaborating in one round, there's actually already basically a tipping point of not being able to handle files. The answer, again, depending a little bit on your calculations, should have been 52. So if you thought it was less, then you probably are thinking about smarter ways to do this. But if you are thinking, hey, I've got this file, I've got it saved on my file system, that's 1. I'm going to put it in my Outlook, in the sent box, that's 2. 4 people will get it in their inbox, that's 4 more with it, that's 6. They're going to maybe save it on their local drive, that's 4 more, we're already at 10. Then they're going to make changes, maybe they change that file separately, so there's 4 more, then we're at 14. Then they're going to put it in an email back to me in their sent items, that's 18. That's going to be 4 in my inbox, that's already 22, and so on. So you can see how this actually adds up in the number of copies, I would rather say, than versions, because these are not true versions. The point being, of course, that it's messy. Collaborating on files for co-authoring, for review, using email is just bloody messy. I mean, there's no way to track what is the most recent version or even where it is. So in a research by IDC in 2012, the most recent research that's out there, some shocking numbers were revealed. 83% of people use separate files to create a version. So that's what I was just explaining in the poll. Every time you save it somewhere in a email or in a file share, you change it into something different. 83% of people do that, resulting in this huge amount of files. So 42% of people said they lose track of which document is the most recent version, and I can imagine that. Also, 20% of files are duplicates that they already have somewhere else. How many people will actually have a file that is shared on a network drive or in an email or even in Office 365 in SharePoint or whatever, and they still have a duplicate somewhere else, on their laptop, on a mobile device, wherever? And this is the most shocking one that I found. Information workers and IT professionals. So you'd think those that would be most effective and efficient. They found that they spent an average of 4.5 hours a week looking for documents. And then after spending those 4.5 hours, they weren't even finding the stuff they needed, and spent half the time recreating files that they didn't find. This is shocking. In fact, what it boils down to in this research is that people are actually not being productive. So you could say they're not coming to work 1 out of 5 days. And that's pretty shocking. I mean, this wasn't the only results, but that's pretty shocking, as if you wouldn't go to work 1 out of 5 days. So this way of co-authoring documents is surely not working. It's losing productivity, it's draining people, it's not making businesses achieve their best. So I'm going to have you look at a new way of co-authoring documents, and I'm going to focus on certain stop doing and start doing patterns. So what should we be doing and what should we not be doing? And this is about rethinking the way we collaborate, because habits are tough. People tend to, hang on, that's too fast. People tend to be stuck in their old habits. We need to rethink the same purpose why we did collaborate on files, the same goal, same business goal, team goal, but we need to rethink with modern tools how we work now into a new way of working. And this is actually a process that could take several years for a whole organization. For some employees, also several years. Some might be faster, but in general, it takes a long time for people to change these habits of doing things the way we did them. So even though Office 365 and SharePoint and OneDrive have been around for a long time, offering smart ways for co-authoring documents. People still tend to be stuck in doing it the old way, saving copies on multiple places, not trusting the cloud, making copies in email and collaborating through email rather than sending an email than maybe sharing it somewhere. So we need to change this concept. It's not about the tools itself that are too hard to handle for people. It's about the concept. So before I get further into this new way of working, I'd like you to do another poll. And there's no wrong or right answer here, obviously, but I'd like to know, where do you store your files? So if you could give it a go, where do you store your files? I'm just curious for this audience, how
The poll is running there, Saskia, so we just give it another couple of seconds for people to vote. So 5 more seconds, everyone. Okay, and I'll call out the results to you, Saskia.
yeah.
Okay, so the results are 82% are on OneDrive, Teams, or SharePoint site. 11% are on a file share, such as a network drive, a laptop, or a PC hard drive. 0 are using a USB stick or a phone or a tablet. 2% are on Dropbox or other external storage system, and 5% are on other.
Okay, now that is, of course, to me telling that you are definitely already active and efficient users of Office 365, since the answer A has the biggest results. The reason I'm asking this is because it actually is very important for this new way of working to see where the starting point is. And it would also probably be interesting if you could figure out this same question. You could do a survey in your organization, how your employees, if you are in an organization or even if you're a consultant helping organizations, where are your employees, your people storing their files? Sometimes the shadow IT, Dropbox or Box or other things is shocking. I still see people using USB sticks to share things. And I still see a lot of file shares still happening. And I still see lots of desktops filled with files that people have stored. And luckily, OneDrive and Teams is really in the up. So that's going to be a better starting point. To change this way of working, it's a prerequisite to start storing in Office 365. OneDrive, Teams, SharePoint, it's basically all kind of the same in the way it handles things. So it's a starting point, because if we do not start there, we cannot change this way of working. So we are still then using lots of different apps. We're still using then email to get out of that jail of where the files are locally stored or on devices stored. And we're still keep using the file shares and hard drives with limited collaboration possibilities and a very limited versioning options, or actually none. So the best thing to know is, where are your people in the way they work now, to be able to guide them in this process to the way they work new, so that over time, the way we work new really becomes again the way we work now. This whole process starts with starting to store files somewhere else in the co-authoring process, then on a hard disk, then on a file share, or USB sticks, or even worse, mail and phones, tablets, other locations. So once we can get them to stop doing that behavior, we can actually start doing some new behavior. So I'm going to take you through some stop and start doing behaviors that can guide employees, that can guide people towards this new behavior. Because what I found to actually start this whole process of the way we work the way we work now into the way we work new, until that really becomes familiar, is that we need to guide people in tiny steps. We can't just say, go and use Teams, go and use OneDrive, go and use SharePoint, because people will be wondering, but how? Maybe they're even wondering why. Before we can actually get them to use it efficiently, we need to take tiny steps and teach them to replace one thing with another. One of the things is stop using file shares. Get rid of that P drive or S drive or W drive, whatever letter of the alphabet you've assigned to your file shares. Let people stop using it, whether it's the personal file share or whether it's the department file share or whatever kind that you could think of. If that is still being used, it's going to not make people transition easily and quickly towards new ways of working. It's actually an inhibition to change if you still have the file shares. Now, another thing to stop doing is coming up, but for that, again, I would like you to give me some insight into how you distinguish different file versions. Now, in the previous poll, that should not maybe be very common, but these answers are actually options that a lot of people are using today, even when it's not necessary anymore.
So we'll give people another couple of seconds to get voting finished, Sascha.
Yep.
And I will read out the results to you. Okay, we will close it now in 3 seconds. Okay, and closed. And the results are, here we go. Version numbers in file names, 61%. Moving files to specific folders, 6%. Dates in file names, 22%. Description or my name in file names, 4%. And append concept final to file name is 7%.
Okay, so a big winner is here the version numbers in file names. And that's actually, thanks Shane for doing the poll. And that's actually surprising to me, since the previous poll said that you're all using already OneDrive and SharePoint mainly to store your files. So, I mean, there can be different reasons for doing version numbers in the name of the file. But yeah, people tend to have this habit of renaming files to reflect a certain version. They could do things like, I'm going to call my report _draft, or when it's done, it's final, or they add a date to it in all kinds of ways that is possible, or they exactly like you said, do maybe a report 1, report 2, report 3. But the problem with these things is that seeing a report final somewhere doesn't really have to be also the final document. So what I also see often, and particularly on file shares, is a report final, because of course I forgot to do something in the final version, and so I'm changing it, I'm calling it final. I've been seeing real final ! So seeing that doesn't really mean it's the latest version. It also isn't really a version, because it'll be a copy of the original file called report.docx in this case. So another thing that I think is imperative for a very good co-authoring process is that people should stop changing file names for versioning for the work in progress. So there's a little reason thingy that we can say, yeah, you could add numbers or anything else if that is the published official one and you want the file name to be able to reflect it. So maybe an offer to a client that you want to change in the file name that you send to them. But in general, as the work in progress, during the collaboration phase, I don't see a reason for changing the file name into anything else, because for a long time, SharePoint, which is basically the same basis for OneDrive and for Teams files, has had the opportunity to do versioning for you in different ways, but the basic principle is every time I change it, I edit it, and it's saved, then it gets an incremental version that is visible on the back end. It doesn't change the file name, and I can see when I want to into the versions. I'm going to also show you this a little bit later on, but one of the things that people should stop doing is stop using file shares. And the second is stop using name changing to mimic versioning. The third thing, and I'm going to go through all of these also show you things. The third thing that people should stop doing, at least as the only means, is using track changes. I'm not sure about you all, but there's folks that are using track changes a lot. There's people that never use it, and of course this is particularly a Word kind of thing. But comments is maybe another one that people are familiar to use when they're collaborating on a file. But what I see a lot is that only old-fashioned things are used, and they're also used for everything. Now, I particularly don't like track changes much when it is with a lot of people and they're just making changes about everything, because to me it just becomes unreadable, and all I then tend to do is to say I'm going to accept all changes. This feature hasn't changed much ever since Office 2010, I don't think. Yeah, you can still use it. It has its purpose. Just the only takeaway that I want to give you also in this webinar is it's not the means to every end. There are better things that you can use in Office or in Teams that are more effective for your specific purpose. So I'm going to have you look with me at start doing the way we work now. We've looked at what we should be stop doing. Now let's look at what we should start doing. We should start co-authoring documents with ease by sharing files, by co-editing, even real-time, by using the automatic version management that OneDrive or SharePoint or Teams, which is SharePoint in the backend, uses. Also, maybe using conversations in Teams about the file, have real-time chats alongside the file to actually work together, even an audio-video meeting. Make sure that you use sync to be able to work online or even offline if you want to, in a smooth flow, and also use some Microsoft Office features optimally. This is what we should be doing, and the result, I think, is a change in mindset. With all the stop doing and all the start doing things, what we'll achieve is we have people move away from a send to a share with mindset, as I call it. So rather than picking a file from any folder on a local drive or shared drive, putting it in my mail, sending it off to several people that will actually save the file somewhere, maybe locally, edit it, save it maybe again, and then sending it back to me. It's sending a file through email. The file moves around. I think people should be moving to a share with mindset, where I'm just going to put my file in a central place that we as a group, as a team, can access. It could be a team in Teams. It could be a SharePoint site. It could even be a OneDrive if I'm sharing it with a group of people. But I'm putting the file there and the people go to the file. So it's not the file that's moving, as in a send to mindset. It's the people coming to the file in the share with mindset. People can add comments, they can change the file, do automatic versioning. The file remains there. It keeps being called report. We always know that we have the latest version, and if we want to, we can go back and look at older versions. So let's have a look at how this actually works, this co-authoring documents process flow. So it is a process, because basically we start off with a document, and the first decision point is, should I only have it in my OneDrive and share it with specific people only when it's a bit more private, or should I start in a team already or in a SharePoint site, but I'm going to focus on Teams mostly from now on, so that the group automatically has access. So that's the first decision point, but it is in the cloud, in Office 365, not on local file shares, not on hard drives, etc. So that's the first choice in the process. Then what happens is people can edit the file, they can add comments, do all kinds of options in Office that they can use. They could have a conversation about the file, not in the file, but actually next to the file, not an email, and then they can actually save it as a new version automatically, or at the end point, it could be, I want to publish the file a bit more formally, in a bit more of a versioning type that's more official maybe. It could go to a SharePoint communication site maybe when it needs to be published to the whole organization. But it's about publishing it to a larger audience. So rather than the old way of working where the file moves around being sent to, in a share with mindset, the file goes through stages. It has a life cycle. We start off as a draft. Could be in OneDrive, could be in Teams. Then we start in a collaboration phase with specific people in OneDrive, or the group can access it in Teams, and we use certain Teams features to collaborate around it. It could be video meeting, it could be co-editing, it could be a conversation around it, different things. And once we are done, we're not changing the file name ever in the draft collaboration phase. Once we are done, we may want to publish it more formally. There's great options also in Office that I'm going to show you. And we keep it in our team maybe, but we just don't want it to be changed anymore, or we want to have a clear indication that it's published. Or we move it to what we call in our Me, We, Key model, to another place, to a larger audience, a key area, maybe a SharePoint communication site or something else. So the document goes through cycles. And my preference is that we use OneDrive as little as possible. And that's quite contrary to what a lot of folks are doing. I see, of course, with the size limit of 2 terabytes of a OneDrive, that it happens a lot. But in my mind, it should not be the case that I have 2 terabytes of files that are mine. I think I should have only a few or only temporary, and most files should be in a team space. That would be either we, or in an organization space, that would be either key. OneDrive, I think, is very good for very private things, for very young drafts, but not for team collaboration or organizational sharing. One of the greatest things about this new co-authoring documents productivity scenario is this new way of working, is that we also need to rethink about what review is. I tend to get mails from people, even if it's with a link to an Office 365 stored file, but basically people ask, can you review this? And what is lacking is being clear, being precise about what it is you want. There's so many things that I could be doing. What you want me to look at the styling? Should I check the colors or the fonts or the headers? Do you want me to do spell check? Should I write something, or should I check specific content on its own? Do you want a discussion? What do you want? So I think one of the things that people should start doing is be more specific about what they want the other person to do with the document when it's in the collaboration phase. And I think there's different features that we can use from this threesome of OneDrive, of Teams, and of Office that can be valuable. So if it is co-creation we want, we could use the real-time editing, or even consecutive editing, even offline when we're using sync. When it's feedback we want, maybe we just want to use comments, maybe we even want to use inking, or we just want to do an audio video meeting. Maybe it's approval that I'm seeking. Hey, is this file okay for you to be sending out to a client? That could be in a conversation, somebody could say yes. It could also be that we're going to create a specific flow to approve by specific people, a bit more formalized. Or do you want me to proofread it? You know, is it looking good? Deciding on these things of the review, let's have a look at what we also should start doing to make this happen. I think one of the things is people should be using the OneDrive sync application properly. You can sync both your OneDrive and Teams actually to be working with your files from familiar locations. It'll be easy to work from your file explorer once we set that up. Once you set it up, you actually get to see your Teams or even your OneDrive files, and you can actually even just double click and open them from here, and they'll be automatically saved back without changing the file name. So let's have a look at the starting point from OneDrive. So let's have a look at what happens about starting to work in co-authoring using your personal OneDrive. I'm going to stop the presentation for a bit and move over to my browser, where I'm going to start in my browser in my OneDrive, and I am just going to create a new document right in my browser using Word Online. I don't need to start in Word. I can just go into the online version. In this case, I am Megan Bowen, and I'm going to type a bit of text. There you go, some Latin for you, some gibberish Latin for you, and you can see this document is automatically saving. I can change the name if I want to, so let's add a name there, and I'll click enter, and you see it's actually saving again. I can, if I want to, now share from here. There's the share button here that I can use. The share button, wherever you use it from, whether it's here or whether it's from my link here, I can also do it here. The same menu appears wherever I use it from, and the options are generally, what do I want? I want specific people, anyone, everyone in my organization. Do they need to be allowed to editing? And I can say apply, and then of course when I choose people you specify, I need to add a name so that I can choose who to share it with. Now it's taking a long time to search. Let's do that. I can enter a message, so this is actually already the share with mentality. Rather than starting an email, writing this message, and then attaching a file, I'm now going to actually just send this message through the share button. I shared it with Adele. Adele, let me move to Adele, can actually go to her OneDrive, where she can go to the shared menu. You see the message also popping up from Megan. Hi, please check the spelling. And Adele can open the file also in the Word Online version and make her changes. We can actually be in the file together at the same time, and we will actually see each other's presence. You can see Megan is in this file as well, so we can both make changes. We can actually also see where one or the other is working. So if I'm here, I can see Adele Vance is there. If I go back to Adele, I could be doing something here. I can check where Megan is. We can also start a group chat around this file if we just want to discuss things not in the file but just outside the file. So we can actually work on this together. We don't need to click save. In fact, in the file menu there's only a save as, which will say you're going to make a copy of this, or you can download a copy, but those are all not preferable. These are all ways of doing it the old way. The new way would just be, let's just close it off. That's it. I'm just closing the file, and if Megan also closes the file, it will actually create something there for me. So for Megan, the files are of course in her files section. Let's reverse it. There's the Latin gibberish that's in my files, but for Adele, it's actually in the shared with me section, giving her less options. This is also one of the reasons that I don't think OneDrive is good for permanent group collaboration, because I just get a long list of all files or folders shared with me. There's no order I can make into that, rather than changing the sorting options or filter it. And we don't have equal rights, so I can't find it in my files. Only Megan can find the files in her OneDrive. Adele cannot use that from her file explorer because they're not her files in her OneDrive. So this is fine if we just want to do a quick start in the share with, but I think the best way to go would be to actually start in a team whenever possible. I could also go to my Word application, and I'm now Megan again. If I go to Word and I click open, I can actually also go to my OneDrive and find the file Latin gibberish, and I can open it up, and I could actually do things, add it a little bit. There you go, some beautiful collaboration here going on, and it's automatically saving. You see auto save is on here, and there's this little roundabout arrow on the save button. I could turn auto save off, meaning that I need to click save every now and again to make my changes visible to anyone else editing it. That can be the case if you don't want people to see it real time, but if you do want people to see it real time, leave the autosave on. Yes, I could still go to the file, save a copy menu, but it's not recommendable. It's best to keep it this way, in this name, that it's saved in my OneDrive in my Office 365. So that's the me part. I can use my OneDrive to actually work from in the browser using Word Online. I can use it from my Office application. I can use it from my File Explorer, opening the files. Regardless, it's still collaborating on a file with a specific person in my OneDrive. The we version is much more interesting. In the me area, it's for now and then collaboration. In the we area, now we're really talking collaboration. We're going to co-author with our team. We're going to be able to be using the different apps again. So I could use Office application. I could use the online browser application of Teams. I could also go to my Teams application, and I can also use my File Explorer if I wanted to, because you see here I also have the X1050 launch team that is right here. I have it here in my Teams, and if I wanted to, I could go to my Word file and click on open and go to sites and browse to my X1050 launch team documents and maybe open something from the general channel. Oh, it's not finding anything yet. Let's just keep that for later. So whatever way you want, but I can also go to my Teams application and go to the files there. And that's why we didn't see anything earlier, because there's nothing in there. And just as I did in my OneDrive, I can also create a file using Word Online, but now it's within the Teams application. So I could call it Test, a brilliant name, of course, always for demos. And it's creating a Word Online file that is called Test. It's creating it. So I'm Megan, I've got my file here. Let's browse to Adele again. She can also open Teams. She could also open the Teams application. I'm now doing it in the browser because I'm using different accounts. I can go to the files area here. And I can see the test document. I always have a choice again. Where do I want to open it? In Word, Word Online, or in Teams? Let's just add it in Teams for now. For Adele as well, and we are still in the file together at the same time, creating versions as we go along. So I could be doing things as Adele, so let's also create some dummy text here. There you go. And if I move back to my Teams application as Megan, I can see instantly what Adele has changed. And if Megan again changes something here and I go to Adele again, I can see that instantly being changed. So these are the same things. What I have on top of OneDrive collaboration is Teams functionality. So on top of OneDrive, I have in the Teams, in the we area around the co-authoring, also the conversation options that are just the normal conversation. So what I can do is I can have the conversation panel on the right and maybe write something to Megan, could you highlight the last paragraph? And I can use add mentions to specify who I'm talking to. I could also specify the whole channel name or the whole team name if I would want everybody, but this is again using new ways of working. I'm not going to send an email asking her to do this. I'm just going to write this message. Now back to Megan. Hey, Adele Vance mentioned you. Isn't that great? So let's have a look at the conversation as well. Now I can use that in a different way. So let me close the file as Megan for a bit and go to the conversation that I see in my Teams general channel. This is where I see that same conversation. I can reply here as well. I will in a minute. And I can use some emoticons if I wanted to give it a bit of, oh, it's not, yeah, it is. just a little slow. I will in a minute, but I could have also clicked on the file again to open it in Teams. And I don't even have to edit it in order to show the conversation pane, but I could if I wanted to. So whether I'm editing it or not doesn't really matter, because I could also use the conversation in the conversation. Editing is only necessary if I want to use the conversation pane. But this, having a conversation, is really great to replace a lot of email. And what's the question to highlight? Yeah, the last paragraph, but let's make it a different color. There you go. And then it's done. So this is a great way to actually work together on a file using the conversation. Now, the great thing about the conversation is I can also use a Meet Now, which would start a audio video meeting. If I do that, we could all be in the same meeting at the same time, and we could still have the file with us. I think it's having some difficulty because of the same laptop that I'm using, but I could start a meet. Now I'm going to cancel it because I don't want to do a meeting in a meeting. It's going to just be confusing, but we could have a meeting, and if the meeting is done, it's actually going to gather all kinds of information as well. So those are options available as well, either from the Teams app or from the browser. That's still possible to do. So I could have chats, I could have conversations, and I could have the automatic file versioning. So let me have a look. I'm going to, yeah, it's all closed. I just wanted to be sure if the file is closed. Now, of course, I could also open the file from here, right? We've seen that. I could go to File, Open for my Word application, go to Sites, X1050, Documents, General, and open the test doc. I can do that from here as well. There you go. And we can use things to collaborate here too. I can see that we are in this document. Megan has it open also in the cloud, it says. So I actually have it open in 2 places. That's no problem. So I could use, of course, different options around my Word again to collaborate. So I'm going to close it for now, because we don't need to be in there right now. Let me check. Yeah, I've got it closed here. And let me go to Megan and let me open up the X1050 library from here. What I want you to see for now is, and this is a standard SharePoint feature, is that I can actually check the version history about this file. It's still called test.docx, but we made several versions as we went along. It could be just me, it could be several people. And the great thing is, if no one is editing at the moment, I can actually view an older version, delete older versions, but I can also restore previous versions. If I would choose to restore version 2, it would create a version 4, still called test.docx, but anyone clicking it would open version 4, which would actually have the content of version 2. That's version management for you. That is not achieved by renaming the file and adding numbers there. That is only achieved if you are trusting the SharePoint versioning in there. So that's the we area. Now, the other thing is that we can actually use great things in Office to, I'm going to skip a few files because we've actually seen them in live. We can actually use great features in Office also to collaborate on files. There's great features in the collaboration phase and the publishing phase. So I'm going to show you, it doesn't really matter which document it is. Let me just create a new one. It's now local, so I'm going to save it into my site, X1050 Launch Team. I'm going to call it Collaboration, right? And click Save. Oh, actually, I had to click Document still. Luckily, now it gives a warning message, as it didn't used to in the past. So I've now saved it to my team X1050 in the general channel. So let's have a quick look at some other reviewing options. Now we have a review menu. That makes sense, right? So again, I said be specific about what it is you want to do. You could use comments. Yeah, I could use the old-fashioned commenting system, which would be something to put here. The downside of comments is that you will need to remove them at some point to make it look good for publishing. So I'm not always happy about comments. Let me just add something though, in all ways. But if you really want a few people to be specific about something there, you could do that. You could use track changes, turn it on, and then merge these things and accept. But I find it to not work for all kinds of things. So if people are just changing my spelling, I'd rather not have them do track changes. Just change it for me if you think that's good. If you just want to rewrite something and we agreed and we trust, then just change it. I don't need track changes for that. Legal people, though, love track changes, and I can see the purpose of that. So it depends on what it is you need to do. Now, some stuff I think is really great is, for example, I can use read aloud.
When you click design and choose a new theme, the pictures, charts, and smart art graphics change to match your new theme.
Yeah, that's enough for this. Some really cool new features. If I want to do a review and want to just see how the flow is, I could actually support my review with reading aloud. If it is more co-creation, remember how we had different types of review? If it's more co-creation, why not use the dictate? Look at that. I can actually talk to my computer. Isn't that great? I can use interpunction as well, like period, next sentence, etc. You will need to set up your language. So you'll need to speak the language that you actually also set up here. It's the same thing that you would do for other review options, like maybe the spelling, or if you want to use maybe a review when you want to do a thesaurus, that is also possible. Maybe I want a different word now and then for the word theme, so I could use the word topic instead. That's also good. So the thesaurus is really great for co-authoring, if that is something that you would like to use. Other things, of course, in co-authoring documents is about inking. Have you ever used ink? Inking in the draw menu. I can use, even without a touchscreen, but if I have a touchscreen and a pen, obviously that's going to make it a lot nicer. I can actually do the stuff that people tend to like when they are drawing on paper. I can also use shapes that I can make. There you go. I couldn't have done that more perfectly without the ink to shape. I can actually replay my inking, so you can actually redo that. So there's different reviewing options. Choose the option that serves your purpose best, whether that's track changes, whether that's comments, whether that's the thesaurus kind of spelling thing, the read aloud, the dictation for you to co-edit documents, different things that you could use for your review that are available. And there are some really great things. There's even things like references where you can actually do all kinds of lookups about research about things. So many options that a lot of folks do not understand yet in the menu. I would say start out with the review button, start out with trying some inking maybe, or other kinds of options. And I could still save the document in my team. I could now close it and I could go back to my Teams application and I could go to the conversation and still do the share with option. Please have a look at what we've got so far. Is it final and ready to print? And I could say, let's attach a file that is coming from my team and I want to do the collaboration right, and I share a link. It's not a copy of yet another version. It is the same file, but I'm just now sharing it in a message that folks can have a look at. And Adele could go here, and if I would just refresh my screen, she will see the conversation as well, and she could reply And of course, it looked very ugly, so she's going to say, no, it's not ready yet. There you go. That's proper co-authoring for you. I'm getting some replies of these things. Now, if I'm still working on a file and at some point I feel like I am done, I have some publishing options, and I want to go through a few for you before you actually make it accessible broadly. Send it out to a customer, share it on an intranet or a communication site. What can you do? First of all, I would always check for issues. You can inspect any document, whether it has comments still left, whether you want to remove document properties that are now showing here because you don't want your customer to see that. Maybe you want to remove inking. So there are different options. Let me actually open the other document, which has more stuff on it to be removed. So go to the check for issues, inspect document. Yep, check all these. So I can say, yeah, let's inspect it for all of these things. And particularly also comments and notes in presentations are very important. It says, yeah, we do have some comments. So let's remove those. And we do have some document properties. Look at the properties on the right there. Let's remove those as well. And let's remove the ink. It's actually not going to remove everything. We'll see that in a minute. There's actually XML data in there. Let's just leave it at that. So that's it. So go back. You'll see the inking is gone except the shapes. Shapes are not inspected, found by the inspection and deleted. So now I'm sure that at least it doesn't have some sensitive stuff. I mean, it's removed lots of stuff. Now I could choose maybe to also protect my document because I want it to be final. What can I do to make it final? I could give it a password so that only those with a password could edit. I could also say I want to restrict the editing. By default, all team members can edit. Maybe I want to restrict that. Or I can mark it as final. And if I do that, and the same actually goes for the option to always open read only, this is only going to give people a warning, but they could say, you know, I don't give it, and I'm going to say edit anyway, and I've turned off the protection. But it is an indication. If you're a team of peers and you trust each other, mark as final might be a good enough way to say this is the final document, we shouldn't edit it. For even stronger stuff, you could of course also say I'm going to export it to a PDF. And if it's a PowerPoint, you can actually even export it to a stream video, making the PowerPoint into a stream video, uploading it to stream. So I could change where I want to save it, but I could even save it in this same team if I wanted to, and making it available right here. We've got the collaboration right PDF right there. It's also going to open it in the browser for me, showing me what it looks like. So there you go, some of the publishing features. This is what I think the real true co-authoring is about. It's about having a document moving through a life cycle, using the features of Teams or of OneDrive to share with rather to send to, having better options to collaborate than just track changes or comments, but also the conversation, audio, video, inking, all kinds of cool things, speech stuff, to help you collaborate and eventually publish to a larger audience with the inspection and protection options using true versioning. That is, to me, a true process of co-authoring. So that was my session. If you want to learn more, let's have a look at www.silverside.com. You can check some ebooks or blogs. There's also some ebooks of mine and blogs on the ESPC website. So that is it for now. And if you are curious about more, let's have a look at our website. I'm also doing user adoption workshops, just some shameless plugging here. And then I'm going to take it to Shane, I guess, to see if there are any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Sasha. Great presentation. And yes, we will have a few quick questions where we've got like nearly 1 minute, so we'll be quick. Here are some questions. Can we comment on specific sections of the document? I think you just showed that. So I'd say that's a yes.
Yeah, so if the traditional comment feature, then yes. If you're using the conversation, then no.
Okay, great. Can you be together 2 or 3 people in the same doc opened from a SharePoint, from a Teams SharePoint, or does it only work on OneDrive?
No, it works on OneDrive, it works on Teams files, and it works on SharePoint sites, which are all the same type of document library. So it can be any of those, and it can be a mixture of devices that you're using or apps that you're using through browser, mobile, desktop applications. It's all regardless. It can all be mixed in together.
Okay. Would you recommend to use OneDrive Sync client for SharePoint online document library for collaboration on documents?
It depends on, I guess, the situation or the role of an employee. So if you are maybe in a situation where you have poor network connection, then maybe using the sync is a good option, because you can actually have them offline, but it does sync when there's a connection again. If you're a mobile worker, I would definitely recommend it. So if you're generally working on the go. If you are a permanent desk worker, always in the office, always connected, you don't have to really, because you can still use the Office applications open and save menu to connect to your sites or your OneDrive. So depending on the role.
Okay. Do we have an option for obtaining approvals from reviewers in Teams?
We can actually use flows in Teams. So there is an option to add flows and use them from within your team. So it's basically using another app in Office 365, which is Flow. I mean, there are traditional SharePoint approval workflows still available. I would not recommend that. That's going to probably be too old pretty soon. But yes, there is the Flow app that you could use, and you could use it to set up an approval flow right from within your team as well.
Okay. Second last question. I can't see file versions in Teams. Is it because of Office 365 subscription?
Say it again. I couldn't hear it properly.
Sure. They say the question here is, I can't see file versions in Teams. Is it because of Office 365 subscription?
Well, that could be. The thing is that they have announced to actually provide the full SharePoint features right from within the Files tab in Teams. At the moment, or depending on your subscription, whether you're an insider or whether you're in a semi-annual or an annual update, or whether your tenant is, it could be released soon or a bit later. But for now, if you don't have it instantly, the same experience as you would have on SharePoint, you would have to go to that SharePoint backend, as you can see here, open in SharePoint, where then you are actually in the SharePoint experience in the browser, where you will find the version options right next to the ... menu of your file. So a lot of people's environments maybe do not have the option yet in Teams, but it will be when you go to the backend through Open in SharePoint, where you can find the version history. But Microsoft is releasing it to be present here under Files soon as well.
Okay. Last question. Mission critical files, i.e. a sales document in Excel, and this is saved on a daily basis with a new file name to correspond to the day. What is the best way to version this, and is version history robust enough?
Well, my opinion is yes, it would be. Of course, it depends a little bit on your compliancy. I mean, the reasons also behind why you're doing this, because if you need to actually have a copy of from each day for a very long period, then I think you would need to look at maybe some more solid solutions in SharePoint to actually do that, maybe also for auditing. If it is only because you are collaborating as a team and you need to be able to go back a week, I would say the Teams document library files versioning would be sufficient in that. The only thing is that with the automatic versioning, you don't control when the version is being created. It creates a version every time it's edited, so not only one per day. If you want that, you will need to check out the document and check in, which is still features available when you open a file from your Office application. So you would have to actually do the checkout thing, and then only when you check in, you actually are creating a version. So
okay,
that would be
brilliant. Those people requesting the slides, Sasha, I assume they can get in contact with you directly if they want the slides?
Yes, sure. I will share my slides and on my SlideShare. I will post on it on social media as well. So if you follow @sberendonk, I'm sure you're going to be able to find my tweet around that for you to find my slides. Happy to oblige.
Great. On behalf of the ESPC community, thank you, Sasha, for taking the time today to complete this webinar. We really appreciate it.
Thank you as well for the chance to do this, and thank you for having me.
Great. Thank you so much, Sasha.
Right.
Okay, everybody. Thank you. That is the end of today's webinar. Please see sharepointeurope.com for further details on all upcoming webinars. And don't forget to visit our resource center where you'll be able to find all previous episodes. Thank you once again to Sasha Berendonk for today, and thank you all for joining. Take care and goodbye.